Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Monday, February 24th, 2020. I want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight. As some of you may know, Mari and I actually tied the knot on Saturday at 2 p.m. Made it official, Mr. and Mrs. Riley, and thank you for all of your support. Congratulations out there. We love you guys. Definitely without your support, your subscribership, and everything that comes with that, we wouldn't be much of a channel. So again, very honored and blessed and humbled from everyone's congratulations and support. All right, let's get into some Grand Solar Minimum news tonight. We have quite a bit to go over a little bit here. Actually, space weather we'll start with. Solar wind speeds coming in at 404.1 with a density of 1.3. 22 days in a row without sunspots, and yep, that was Nibiru that just went by the sun there. If you guys, yep, there it was again. So just kidding, little humor there, little YouTube humor there, folks. But 38 days in 2020 without sunspots. Now that's 69% of the year without sunspots. So for those who were talking about the sun coming back on, remember we are close to 70% of 2020 without sunspots, after having a start of the 2020 season, like the first 18 days with a sunspot. So minimum conditions are back in effect. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at the grandsolarminimum.com on the space weather stats. Well, now maybe we will. Hold on, folks. Bear with me. It's coming. I promise. You gotta love our live shows, right? It's always full of surprises and good stuff. That's not it either. I promise I'll find you our webs. There it is. All right, here we go. So the grandsolarminimum.com. Let's go to the space weather section of our page. A little bit of action on the solar X-ray flux. Not much though. Still the A class. And then of course the KP indices are very calm at this time. But we do have a interesting region to follow in the next, I don't know, 12 days possibly before we get to, well, actually 6 days before it actually breaches the eastern limb, which right now it does not appear that we are going to see such in this situation, but it is a region to pay attention to. And I just wanted to point it out real quick. If you guys take a look near the 30 on the latitude, the plus 30, you will see a bright region, active region here. I'll zoom in on it for you guys. Let's take a look at that. But that is still pretty far behind the eastern limb, about 3 to 5 days away before we see if that thing breaches the eastern limb with any kind of activity. Also another one in the negative 30 latitude as well. So we'll keep our eyes on those two areas, as that could threaten the spotless days of 22 days in a row, as that is a pretty massive region. And looking at it on this particular image right here, it's possible we could be seeing two spots that we could be dealing with at the same time, and they both could belong to solar cycle 25, which would be interesting to have two sunspot regions, both a part of the incoming solar cycle 25. So we'll keep an eye on that, but still 22 days without sunspots. That's 38 on the year. Like I said, 69%. 3.82 is the TCI, and that is staying up just because of our solar wind speeds also have been elevated in the 400s here in the last few days. KP indices now at a 1 and a 24-hour max of 2. Now, right now, we don't have any large coronal holes that are Earth-facing at this time. So there's nothing really to report as far as incoming solar wind stream or anything like that. And as far as volcanic and earthquake activity, not much to be expected. There was a 6.0 earlier this week. I believe it was in Turkey near Iran, if I'm not mistaken. But other than that, it's been kind of quiet on the tectonic side. So I know this is old news, but I wanted to mention it because we haven't been on the air since the 21st, but this was reported on the day Mari and I got married, February 22nd. A blizzard buried a village in Turkey's southeastern city of Yukoskova and left the residents without power and water. On Friday, February 21st, the entire village was buried under a white blanket of snow, and residents were struggling to dig through the 20 feet of snow. Schools have been closed for 3 days, and snowplow drivers brace the cold to clear the main roads. Dozens of villages, up to 70, have been affected. But this is crazy. 20 feet of snow. And guys, there is plenty of other pictures and videos on this. Not very many articles and stats about this particular situation. But still, we've seen heavy snow in Turkey a couple of times now. And just add that to the notch in the belt, I guess you could say, for more powerful snow across parts that we weren't expecting this kind of snow at this year. So when you ask about GSM and if its effects have been felt this year, the answer is yes. If you live overseas, the Middle East, Turkey, Iran, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, all of them, they can tell you right now they have felt the effects of GSM with huge snowfalls, huge flooding events. We're already starting to see flooding here in the U.S. In fact, I'm seeing more stories on Facebook where the Delta is once again flooding. And speaking of flooding, violent mud flows and raging flash floods hit southern Peru. Nonstop intense downpour has triggered violent mud flows and raging flash floods across Peru's southern region, bringing the death toll to 9 as of Monday, February 24th. Red warnings for heavy rains and thunderstorms and strong winds were issued for central regions in the country's south, as severe weather is expected to persist from February 25th. It says here, floodwaters turn roads into rivers, causing widespread damage to homes and properties. Videos posted on social media showed muddy floods sweeping across streets, carrying debris and knocking off houses as residents were heard in the background crying in devastation. On February 21st, 5 people were confirmed dead in the region, while 10 others were injured due to severe weather. Flooding and landslides hampered search and rescue operations, according to authorities. The Peruvian, let's do that. The Peruvian army was deployed to help in rescue and recovery efforts. Try saying Peruvian. Guess that's difficult for me. One house was totally destroyed, while 249 sustained damages and further 2,146 were inundated, according to Peru's disaster authority. 371 flooded homes were in Tacna, 450 in Pachia, and 800 in Pocole district. Areas of George Badasar province also bore the brunt of the inundations, displacing 28 households in that particular district. And it seems like every Monday I kick the week off with some kind of flash flooding event, mudslides, landslides, a different corner of the world each time. So add that to your GSM news, unfortunately. And just like here in the States, we're seeing flooding all over the world. Cosmic radiation. I mean, these dates will correlate when you look up these major flooding events and you see what years they're happening in. The 2008, 2009, 2010, 1996, 1997, 1998. You keep going back 11 years back to that, back in the 87, 86. I remember 85 being a really cold winter. And then, of course, you got your 70s, 77, 78. And you just keep going back further and further, 11 years from that main year. And you're going to see a lot of flooding events, a lot of heavy snow events surrounding these minimum situations. I don't know what's so difficult to understand that the science that's involved with this. The real science is in the raw data and the history and the reports, not some propaganda paid actor telling us about how we're contributing to global warming. Lots of stuff to talk about that too. I got a couple of articles from What's Up With That I want to show you. Snowstorm to track from plains to Midwest. I'll go over that in my GFS Outlook, but I did want to bring it up really quick because once again, we have a cross-country storm that's going to be heading in starting tonight. It's going to be rain for a lot of folks here in the Midwest, in the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, North Carolina. Whatever snow you guys had earlier will be gone thanks to the rain and the warmer temperatures, but this storm will move through Tuesday night into Wednesday for the Northeast as rain and then changing over to snow by the time it's all said and done. Northern parts of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine will see the brunt of the snowfall. Folks that are, I'd have to say Saratoga Springs and southward will see around an inch of snow. And right now, the snow measurement line for the upstate New York region and the Northeast, there's a fine line to watch right now. I think for the most of us here in upstate New York, we're probably looking at 2 to 4. Just because of how much rain we're going to get in the beginning of this, temperatures are going to not be below freezing. So if anything, it could be as low as 1 to 3 as well. But I just want to make a quick mention of this because I will go over this again during the GFS outlook. But there you see the purple. Chicago, Detroit, you guys look to be the ones that could consistently see around, 5 to 8 inches possible. But if you look at this map here, you'll see upstate New York, areas that could see a foot. And that purple line is just too close to call right now, folks. And I can tell you right now, Mari and I are in that purple if this forecast remains. But that's only the 5-inch, 6-inch range. So definitely a 1 to 3 possibility. It just really depends on if these temperatures drop enough and change over to snow. But Chicago, Detroit, Northern Indiana, you guys could see upwards to 5 to 7 inches of snow. And then across parts of South Dakota and Nebraska, there are isolated areas of 8 inches possible. But this is just a minor, in my opinion, a 3 to 6 inch snowstorm for most of us out here. Still, 3 to 6 inches can be a lot for some folks. All right, so Paris Agreement architect still haunting the mainstream media. Christina Figueres, an executive secretary of the UNFCCC at the COP17 in Durban, South Africa, author of the UN climate change source Wikimedia. Failed Paris Agreement architect Christine Figueres is back pushing a new book and telling everyone what they're doing wrong. World's top climate negotiator condemns Australia's response to climate change. Monday, February 24th at 6 a.m. She's an early riser. The leader of the Paris Climate Agreement talks says she is deeply pained by the attitude of the Australian government to climate change in the wake of this summer's unprecedented brush fires. Costa Rican diplomat Christina Figueres became the United Nations top climate negotiator in 2010 and was at the helm for a historic Paris Climate Agreement in 2015. Her task was to bring leaders of 195 countries together to negotiate a binding agreement to stop the world warming beyond 2 degrees Celsius. No easy task after the disastrous failure of the 2009 Copenhagen Climate Summit. In an interview with Hack Avani Das about her new book, she hit out at the Australian government response to the brushfire disaster, and she's quoted saying, "I'm deeply pained by the attitude of the current Australian government. That's still after the worst disaster that has ever hit the planet." Let me repeat this. The worst disaster that ever hit the planet, the brushfires in Australia, that this government still denying climate change and denying the fact that there are a lot of Australians that can and should be doing. Figure said. Now, I bring this up because this is the typical AGW playbook. She is calling this the worst disaster that has ever hit the planet. Ever. These brush fires. Were these brush fires man-made? My answer is yes. Why am I saying that these brush fires were man-made? Because around 193 people were arrested for setting fires throughout Australia. Brush fires. Some of these brush fires turned into major fires. So, yes, Australian government can do a lot more to prevent this disaster, and that's have harsher penalties for acts of destruction to our environment. I mean real destruction, like setting brush fires purposely. So that's what the Australian government can do to help fight this type of disaster. But for her to come out and say, again, this is the typical AGW playbook strategy, For her to come out and say that this is the worst disaster that ever hit the planet without bringing you a date, without showing you any other kind of information that would confirm this, citing an article or a link or something that says that this is the worst ever. This is typical AGW garbage. Trying to make you believe that climate change had everything to do with those fires. They need to look at history. We've had worse fires than this, way worse fires. But I hate that people will hijack a disaster, and that's what it was. It was a disaster, but they're hijacking it and making it part of a propaganda and an agenda of man-made climate change. And then she comes out and says they're still denying climate change. Let's get this clear. The government of Australia is not denying climate change. It's just not buying into this Green New Deal policy crap. There are too many studies out there and too many people who are now changing their stance on climate change that are showing us that CO2 is not causing climate change. In fact, I wouldn't even say climate change at this point. Right now, we're seeing some extreme anomalies that are happening around the world. Wait till this GSM gets good, ready, and swinging and kicking, because this is just the beginning part of the grand solar minimum. Once we go through this week maximum, we'll see even worse weather. And you think this is bad. It's not going to get better this year, I can tell you that. And we're looking at a plant season right now that's in jeopardy like last year's. Thankfully, there is a week maximum that is coming up in 2024 through 2026. And they're expecting the sunspot, the smooth sunspot numbers to be that of or slightly below solar cycle 24. Which wasn't that impressive, folks. Myself, I'm banking on it to be, somewhere in the 70s to 90s on the smooth sunspot number for the max. That's just the truth. And that's very, very weak, guys. To put in perspective, an average solar max should be between about 170 to 220 on the smooth sunspot number. So we're well below an average solar max. So when I say solar max, I don't want people to sound the alarm and say, well, Riley just admitted that the grand solar minimum is not happening because there's going to be a solar max. You have to look at the intensity of this solar max. And you'll know what I'm saying, because we'll be able to compare the activity on the star this time around compared to 2014, 15, and 16 solar max. And you'll be able to compare how, I'm sure of it. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that, but in a way I feel good about what I've been taught about the grand solar minimum and solar cycles. And from what the information that's been passed along to me, I feel confident that we will see that difference in this maximum. And I'm telling you guys, this is where this maximum coming up is going to confirm where we're heading as far as solar activity. And the worst of it, a lot of people have said 2030, and that is looking more and more likely. 2028 is when we probably start descending back into a deep minimum. I mean, we'll start seeing minimum conditions probably around 2026, 2027, and then we'll start to see deep solar minimum conditions right as we approach that 2030, 2031, and the numbers that we think are bad now, some scientists are predicting even lower smooth sunspot counts, which could be in the 50s or below. So again, when we say this is only the beginning, that's not a good thing. That's what we're seeing now is bad enough. To have this on a more frequent basis in the future after a week maximum. And like I said, guys, at best, we're going to have average seasons for those 2 years. At best, average seasons. We'll still get the occasional big extreme event here and there, but nothing like we've seen here since 2016. I mean, we've seen a lot of extreme weather events taking place since 2016, no doubt. Climate change to me is when the climate changes the opposite of what it already is. And what we're seeing right now are extreme events. Now, as temperatures continue to drop around the globe, which we will start seeing proof of that, then you could say it's climate change. Right now, the climate's doing the same thing it's been doing for the past 30 years. There hasn't been much of a warming since 1989. NOAA has done several things to hide and manipulate to hide the global warming pause. Again, nothing's really happening right now. So climate change to me is going to be when things start cooling off. Right now, we're experiencing the same kind of temperatures, just a little more extreme weather the last several years. And that's only going to get worse as we get through the 2020s into the early 2030s. And I fear that things could get a little bit dicey this year and next year even, when it comes to plant, when it comes to flooding, when it comes to just these worldwide extremes. Hurricane season predictions are going to be coming out here soon. It's too early for me to say, but if I had to guess, it's probably going to look like what last year looked like. 1 or 2 major hurricanes, a few that might make landfall as a Cat 2, Cat 3, and maybe that one big disastrous one. But other than that, I mean, we've already proved that global warming, climate change, whatever, we were told that they were going to cause more hurricanes last year. And last year was a big fat dud. Thankfully, we have plenty of damage. Other than Dorian was disastrous and awful. But other than that, we had no, increase in hurricanes like Al Gore and company had promised us, that we were going to see more and more and more of these storms. And that just didn't happen. Staying with climate and all that good stuff, BBC climate education is failing because some graduates become oil executives. A child activist interviewed by the BBC is disappointed that some educated people resist climate indoctrination enough to accept jobs from oil companies. He says it's educated people who are causing the most damage to the planet, says the sixth former Joe Brindle. Joe is 17, says school needs to put the environment at the heart of education. Ministers agree it's vital that pupils are taught about climate change, but Joe says schools are failing to prepare them for the climate emergency. He is a founding member of Teach the Future, which next week takes its call for an environmental overhaul of education parliament. My God. It's people with degrees from Oxford and Cambridge who are becoming fossil fuel CEOs. And they are the ones who are causing the most destruction to our world. And therefore, the kind that shows that education is not succeeding, that our education is broken, because education should be creating better people, not worse people. This punk basically is saying that we are creating worse people right now. In a statement that the government said it is vital that pupils are taught about climate change, which is why topics are included across the national curriculum for both primary and secondary schools. Teachers have the freedom to expand on these areas if they wish. The government is a world leader in tackling climate change, and we are the first major economy to legislate net zero emissions by 2050. The Department of Education provides funding to support schools to become more sustainable institutions. An education system still which produces a handful of climate skeptic graduates who can think for themselves just isn't good enough. Now, this is troubling to me because you got a 17-year-old, and I don't understand what's going on here, but we've got Greta, who is, to me, an innocent teenager who was hijacked by her parents for this propaganda poster child agenda. Now we have another one here, this Joe kid, 17 years old, telling us that school is making worse people. The education's not good enough. Well, I got to tell you something that really burned my ass today. I was looking at my son's report card, and his science teacher, he had an 88 percentage in his science this past semester. And one of the comments was that Aiden did really good on his global warming project. Now, I gave Aiden, my son, some advice about this project, and I said, don't listen to me. And the reason why I told him that, and this is the sad part, and I was talking to him about this tonight before the show, it's sad that I've got the experience and I've been put the basic foundation of climate in front of me, and I know how this works. I see that it's the sun. I see that cycles is what changes the climates, not man. And I can't even help my own son understand climate change. I can't help my son understand climate science. I told him to do the exact opposite of what I do. And for that, he got a passing grade on his global warming science project. How tough is that? Super bummed out about that. But my point is that these schools are already failing by teaching these kids a propaganda and not facts. Not even mentioning the sun. No, they don't even talk about solar cycles in school. The fact that the mainstream, the consensus, these AGW don't even consider solar forcing or that the sun has anything to do with our climate. That's the real climate denial. It has nothing to do with us. The only ones denying the real science are the people who follow global warming. And speaking of that, you're going to love this. Liz Warren explains why she believes Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal doesn't go far enough. What? Elizabeth Warren said in a Democratic 2020 town hall Thursday that the so-called G&D is not sufficient policy to tackle what she believes is the biggest problem facing the world. Guys, these politicians don't know what they're talking about. I mean, seriously, when AOC came out with her G&D, everybody looked at her like, you are crazy. You are crazy, AOC. What are you talking about? No cars, no trains, no planes, no farting cows. Let's ban meat. Turn everything green. Let's turn solar and wind as the main power. And then you've got Elizabeth Warren, aka Pocahontas, who says that we need to go further. What? How much farther can you go? Maybe just get rid of energy altogether. Let's just, burn candles for energy, for light, and, churn our own butter again and forget about refrigeration. Let's get back to living off grid again. I don't know what further you could go. AOC's plan is radical. But Elizabeth Warren says we need to do more. In 12 years, AOC wanted to get rid of CO2 at all the cars and all that. So how much more extreme can you get than 12-year plan of getting rid of all combustible engines and fossil fuel ran industries? These guys are just up here talking about whatever they think sounds that's going to get them votes, whatever it makes them sound like. I'm going to save the planet. I guess that phrase right there, I'm going to save the planet. Well, I got to vote for her. She's going to save the planet. But as the late, great George Carlin would say, how arrogant of you to say that you're going to save the planet, that man can save the planet. The planet's been here for 4.5 billion years, and we're arrogant enough to think that we have something to do with its demise. The planet's going to get rid of us before we get rid of it. I'll promise you that. And that leads me into my next article here. Outbreaks in Italy, Iran, South Korea are providing hard to contain. More than 79,000 people have been infected worldwide. 2,629 deaths so far. We are starting to see more and more reports. In fact, 26 new confirmations of the coronavirus here. Now it's went up to 36. Interesting. And this is in an area. Let's zoom in on this area. It won't let us see the red dot from too far away. It's like it wants to hide the cities. 26 confirmed here near. Where is this? So this is in Kansas. So this is new, folks. This just popped up on my map. So very peculiar that we have 36 confirmed cases just in this little area here near the border of Kansas and Oklahoma, near Coffeyville in Montgomery County, Kansas. Should this be concerning? I don't know. but definitely interesting. It's all unassigned location. Guys, are you seeing this? I'm not trying to get all conspiracy theoried out here, but I'd like to know what this is right here. Near a lake. Any of you geographical experts out here, guys, this location right here is showing 36 confirmed cases here in the United States. This is in Kansas, southeast Kansas, Montgomery County, Kansas, right near the border of Oklahoma, near Coffeyville. So that's new. What's also concerning too is that there are rumors and reports of cases that are reported here in New York that aren't being added to this list. Some article I saw in the county that I live in, there are people at a local newspaper facility that have been quarantined, that have been confirmed with coronavirus. Also, I saw that there's 325 people in Michigan that are possibly being screened in concerns of this virus as well. So the stock market dropped 1,000 points today in fears of this being a pandemic. Weather Channel has got it on their website, and this was their top story just until a few hours ago. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says that pandemic happens when new viruses emerge that are able to infect people easily and spread from person to person in an efficient and sustained way. Very few people will have immunity against the pandemic virus, and a vaccine may not be widely available. If we went across the whole world and had a magic ball and were able to detect everyone who's positive, we'd see it in lots of countries. Michael Mina, of infectious disease specialist at Harvard, told the Washington Post, it's never clear until it's happening. And this goes back to the fears that the numbers that we're seeing right here on this website are nowhere near the truth. All we can do is just base it off the information here that we have, continue to monitor it. I know they're concerned in Italy and France, especially Italy. They've surged to the top 5 of cases right now. South Korea with 833 and rising. Italy now at 229 cases. They were 150 earlier today. Iran also 61 cases. The United States has now jumped up to 53 cases. There's a graph down here at the bottom. This little yellow graph, or this little corner graph here, I'm going to bring up for you guys. It won't show. Maybe it will. Hold on. Nope, I can't get it to show everything. That's unfortunate. Check this out, though. You'll know what I'm talking about. The yellow line is starting to lift up from the bottom. And that is where we're starting to see more cases now in other parts of the world. But right now, China is the big threat. Italy, some serious concerns right now in France. And if you look at this overall map, we're starting to see more cases breaking out across the United States. Folks, I'm not here to raise a level of fear. I just feel like that this could affect us. I mean, we've got the beginning of a grand solar minimum to deal with crops damaged for the last 2 years, and this year looking like more of the same. More floods, more people are dying in the cold, floods, avalanches, and now we have this potential pandemic. So more than ever, I think it's time for us to really brush up on our survival skills. Start prepping for food. The stock market dropping 1,000 points may be just a one-day fluke. It's possible. I mean, we've seen this scare before. But this was one of the lowest losses, or the highest losses in one day in the last 2 years. So a lot of people are worried. A lot of people are concerned about this virus possibly affecting China's economy. And not just to China, but other places as well. We'll keep our eyes on this, folks. Again, I wanted to bring this up because this is very relevant, and we've seen lots of fluctuation on the numbers. Amazing to me how reporting of cases have slowed down. We're almost peaked at 80,000 here, but it doesn't add up considering all the videos, all the information we've seen. Some fear this number is in the millions and not just, I mean, look, that red dot says it all, folks. I think China's population is like, what, 3 billion? Something like that. So there's a lot more than just 80,000 cases. And there's a lot of scientists out there who are speaking out and saying that there's more cases than we know. And just like just like tonight, this newly updated count for the United States. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than 2,000 cases in the United States right now that aren't being reported. So we'll continue to monitor this as well. Let's try to end tonight with something positive. We have a weather update. Check this out here in the tropical tidbits. That's a lot easier to do. So lots of rain in the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley. As the storm starts to make its way towards the northeast by Wednesday, it'll start as rain in the capital region of New York, turn into ice Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Come back as a little bit of rain in the morning, but look, it's hard to tell, guys. It's going to be a fine line. If you live in New York, upstate especially, it's going to be hard to tell when that snow is going to start for you. But a good chance for some decent snow showers here on Thursday for my family back home in Dayton, Ohio. A good chance for at least 2 to 4 inches of snow possible for you guys, Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland. Guys looking at a decent snow amount. But the heaviest snow, well, that's across the border. Buffalo, Western New York is possible also to get some heavy snows in the south towns. And then as we get to Thursday evening into the overnight hours, well, that's when the heaviest snow hits upstate New York and starts affecting Maine and Vermont. The storm will sweep out by morning, Friday morning, light snow across upstate New York, Western New York, New Hampshire, and Maine and Vermont as well. Storm finally winds down somewhere around Friday overnight. Look at that. The winds, the cold air behind this system will bring lake effect snows to the Buffalo and the south towns. Erie, PA will also get some lake effect snow showers after that system. So after that one, we've got another quick hitter of some rain. And then by March 4th, another low pressure system gets its act together. More heavy rain for the Mississippi River Valley and the Ohio River Valley as well. And as this thing continues to move northeast, Michigan, hello, Wisconsin, good chance for some heavy snow for you folks out there as well. March 5th going into March 6th. Another system could affect the northeast. Right now, this is looking to be a significant snowmaker, the 3 to 6 inches of snow. And that could be as far as Columbus, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, Erie, PA, Buffalo, PA, or Buffalo, New York, I should say, upstate New York, Maine, New Hampshire. Again, you guys are going to be the main culprits of the heaviest snowfall, possible of a foot on March 7th. A quick little system moves through after that. High pressure dominates, more cold air to the northeast. It's going to be solidified for that first part of March. And spring-like temperatures are going to make a fight to dominate the country by the middle part of March. But the northeast is going to stay cold, believe it or not. Take a look at the temperatures. Right now we've got a mild streak that a cold Arctic front is trying to make its way in, and it will hang around for the first part of March for the northeast. Midwest fighting for spring here, though, guys. Look at this. By March 4th, some nice temperatures across the Ohio Valley to Kentucky, Tennessee, in the south. And then another shot of cold Arctic air making its way into the northeast only, though. And I've read some reports that we could be seeing some polar vortex situations. Very minor, very weak, and we could be seeing the beginning of spring at this point, maybe by the 20th of March for most of us. We might start seeing a break from these Arctic patches of cold air. I don't know. Still a long way out, but just looking at long-term information. Snow coverage from here until March 11th, well, the temperatures definitely support in the northeast, and there's a lot of green up here, folks. So where Mari and I are at right now, we could see anywhere from a foot to 2 feet of snow on the ground. I know that's a wide window, but that is just the information that's being passed along, folks. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for tuning in to the Grand Solar Minimum channel for your latest on Grand Solar Minimum news. We appreciate everyone's support out there, and thank you once again for tuning in. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning for another Grand Solar Minimum News update. Until then, we will talk soon, folks. Take care.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform, buy a t-shirt, or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.